my group that I send into different universes in order to uphold my will, basically whenever I'm too busy. And you have to do that now, right? And that's the thing. Like, initially, She-Hulk is like, no, I can't do that because Star Fox and I slept together, and I think he uses powers on me in order to achieve that. And I can't be unbiased here. But the response to the tribunal is your relations to him are irrelevant. It doesn't matter, right? All that matters is that you represent us, the three faces of justice. Now, the cool thing about that is it's a little bit of a reminder of the role the tribunal plays. Although by this point in time, if you're reading Marvel Comics, you know exactly what the tribunal is about. Hence the benefit of this for people who don't read comics. That the half-shrouded face represents vengeance, the unmasked face represents equity, and then there is the hidden face, which the living tribunal has. And the hidden face basically is revealed to She-Hulk when it says, "Here, my magistrati, look upon my last face." And She-Hulk sees herself. And the response to the tribunal is, it is the face of necessity, the cosmic mirror which reminds us to always judge others as we would have ourselves judged, no matter what the cost, to do what is required of us, to do what must be done. Now, here's the thing about the living tribunal. Whenever people reference this particular comic, they oftentimes get it confused with Silver Surfer Volume 3, issue number 31, which basically expanded on the nature of the living tribunal's faces, in the sense that it does have three, right? Equity, vengeance, necessity, but could potentially have a fourth face, which would have been the face of the stranger. Now, the significance of that has never really been explored by Marvel Comics. It was just a possibility that could have been there, and that was basically it. Beyond that, this is just one of those things where very rarely do we ever see the tribunal, one, address a mortal directly, and two, reveal what its hidden face actually looks like. But the significance of this is that with this addressing having come to She-Hulk by the living tribunal, she in turn responds to the trial, right? She says, okay, fine, I've been directly told to travel to this place. Now, one of the things to know is, and really one of the questions to ask is, what if she is still said no? The tribunal likely would have forced her to go anyway, since that was her role as part of the magistrati, or he would have stripped her of her title, and that would have basically been it. Such as it is, the story just progresses in a way without us really getting that answer. Honestly, we can offer our own interpretation, but the fact remains that with this whole situation unfolding the way that it is, you have situation unfolding the way that it is. You have all these different people who basically appear here to offer their own explanations to Star Fox, really as just observers or as people who are character witnesses. One of the first of them is Pip the Troll. Now, the reason for this is Pip the Troll, unlike what you saw in the MCU where Pip introduced Eros to the Eternals, the reality is that Pip the Troll's relationship is more closer in line with Adam Warlock and Gamora than anybody else. But there was a point in Marvel, really back during like the late 80s and early 90s, kind of the golden age of Marvel Cosmic, if you want to call it that. Pip the Troll was very closely intertwined with Eros himself. And in fact, that's kind of the nature of Pip. He sort of bounces around. That's one of the reasons why a lot of fans have a very fond place in their hearts for Jim Starlin's run, because it was like Cosmic Marvel before we really got Cosmic Marvel. And in all honesty, we might go back and cover that era of comics. It's a really, really cool point in time. But Pip the Troll actually makes this passing remark to She-Hulk as he walks by and realizes she's not wearing any underwear. He's like, "Going commando, huh? Brave choice." And then she freaks out and tries to attack him. But Pip the Troll inadvertently actually offers testimony that actually condemns Eros to a degree, right? When he's just like, "Man, let me tell you about Eros, right? He's the greatest guy. I never had a better time than I did when I was hanging out with Eros, man. Women, you'd be amazed what kind of women you can find yourself surrounded by with Eros. Like, I don't know what it is, man, but for whatever reason, this guy just has the ladies just come to him." And inadvertently, he actually reveals that Eros manipulates the emotional states of the women around him in order to get those women to become sexually interested in him. And so, basically divulging that, he's like, "Oh, wait a minute, this whole trial is because he's using his powers to get chicks to, like, bang him, right?" And people are like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay, so I'm out. I'll see you later." And he basically bails. And so following that, you get a really, really cool instance where She-Hulk steps up and says, "I will testify in defense, or at least offer testimony on behalf of Eros." Now, when I say testimony, it's what you would call asking for testimony here. The reality is that their systems of law are far more advanced than humanity's, right? Like, one, because the race is more advanced, and two, because we as people are still kind of stupid, right? I mean, all things considered, we're not that bright. And so the way this works is that there's a kind of mental projection that's given by way of both She-Hulk as well as Eros. And what it does is it allows an observer, somebody like Moondragon, for example, who can act as an intermediary, a telepathic go-between, that she can basically take the memories of She-Hulk and compare them to the memories of Eros in terms of how they perceive things and what they were thinking, and basically use that to verify its authenticity. This really comes to a head when the two of them share a kind of mental link. And what we're told here is that the romantic connection between the two was legitimate. That it was actually a legit connection. That She-Hulk was really romantically interested in Eros, and Eros was romantically interested in She-Hulk. And as a result of that, the two of them did sleep together out of a mutual interest, as opposed to Eros manipulating her. And so, as a result of that, when the question is asked, like, did you ever like use your love powers on me? The response of Eros is, I did, when you were dating John Jameson, the son of J. Jonah Jameson. Now, that was one of the I guess, bigger romantic exploits of She-Hulk. The way the story was initially told, She-Hulk just sort of fell out of love with John Jameson. This was Dan Slott coming back and explaining the reason why that happened is because Star Fox had manipulated She-Hulk in order to ensure that happened. Because from Star Fox's perspective, She-Hulk was just unhappy, but she just didn't have the gumption to pull the trigger. She didn't have the gumption to just break up with him and walk away. So Star Fox effectively did it for her. Now, the funny thing about this is that She-Hulk was very much interested in John Jameson. It was just, one, their lives were starkly different. Two, it would have been difficult to make that relationship work. And three, she was still struggling with the idea of dealing with her own issues in terms of like the She-Hulk, Jennifer Walters dichotomy and all that kind of stuff. So the reality here is her struggles when it came to John Jameson had less to do with John and more to do with herself. It was just one of these elements where she basically finds out that her withdrawing from John was due to a manipulation by Star Fox, which of course she lashes out and starts attacking him. Now of course Phyla-Vell and Moondragon step in, and this leads to her attacking both of them. And then it's just like a three-way fight. Now the cool thing about this is one of the things that I love so much. These chicks are OP. Let me tell you something, man. Like between She-Hulk and Moondragon and Phyla-Vell, they could take all comers, right? There's almost no one that would be able to stand against them, minus like super high level comers, right? You know, Franklin Richards gets pissed off and decides to attack them. Yeah, they're gonna die. But between these three right here, I would say they would be able to take on most anybody who is out there. So the three of them fighting like that is no small thing, and that's why everybody tries to stop them and calm them down. But then suddenly Isaac, the sentient computer that's kind of the arbiter of this entire trial, brings everything to a halt by saying that there's effectively a portal that's opening up here, and this portal is leading to the arrival of Thanos. And so as soon as he arrives, everybody stops. Right? Like literally, She-Hulk, Moondragon, and Phyla-Vell are like, oh, we all have truce? And they're like, yeah, because everybody's standing on their guard. Whenever Thanos arrives, it's usually because he's going to start wrecking people. Right? He's going to start killing people. Well, the funny thing here is when he shows up, he's like, look, I'm not here to attack or kill anybody. I'm here to testify on behalf of my brother Star Fox, right? On behalf of Eros. Offer my testimony here in order to help this guy get off. And so what ends up happening is once he sits down and you have essentially the mental link that's created between Star Fox and Thanos and then Moondragon, you get this moment from when they were little kids. And then what had happened here is that Thanos had basically found himself with a bit of a pet. And then ultimately what this pet he had, it ended up dying. He actually ended up killing it by accident, not realizing how strong he was. And Eros came to his aid and tried to talk him down and say, look, you didn't mean to kill it. Everything's okay. Like, it's okay. It's not a great huge thing. Sometimes these things happen. And where Thanos rebuked the idea of death and hated the concept of death and didn't quite understand why things had to die, the response of Eros is, like, death is a part of life, Thanos. It's just the nature of things. Value is given to the things we love because we know we won't have those things forever. Whether we lose them before our life ends or we lose them when our life ends, the time we spend with those and the attachments we make, that's what makes life worth living. And so using his powers, he basically manipulates him and he literally says, I told you that death was a part of life, that you should welcome it, and that you should embrace death with all your heart. And so the statement of Thanos is, that is how I became the way I was. That's how I became the person that I